Hello, everybody. That's my best impression of how Charles begins the episode. You probably also didn't hear any music unless I was feeling super ambitious and figured out how to put the FTF music up top. But I am really excited that while Charles is on his paternity leave from FTF, I'm really excited to be talking with a longtime friend in the fantasy community, a fantasy thought leader in his own right.
Oh
We've
yeah.
got Stephen from Fantology Podcast, one of our first ever collaborators back in 2020, I think was the first time that we started working with Fantology, and we're over half a decade later. We're still going strong. So, Stephen, awesome to have you. We're going to talk about some your favorite authors, favorite books, all that kind of stuff. And why not throw the ball into your court too to talk a little bit about Fantology because it's been a little while since we did collab. So
Yeah, yeah.
anyone, I'm sure many of our listeners are well aware of Fantology, but anyone who's not, you can give a little summary of what you do
Yeah.
over there.
I think I need to add fantasy thought leader to my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, you can
I
quote me
like
on
that.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll definitely give me a raise in the tech field that I'm in.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, excited to be on. I'll do my best to fill in for Charles, although I know those are very big shoes. But
He
yeah, it
does have
has been
large feet, physically
yeah,
speaking.
that's what I was yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I meant. Was there another meaning to that?
Yeah,
I
no.
don't yeah, I
Figuratively, you'll
don't
be
think so.
fine.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been a few years and it's cool that we're both going strong and yeah, I think we're at like 350 some odd episodes. You guys are at least like a couple hundred
Yeah, I think
plus
we're nearing
episodes of
300. I hope I don't
nice.
accidentally pass it while Charles is gone. He'll be annoyed at me. But yes, we near 300.
Yeah,
But you said 350?
350. Yeah,
Wow.
354, something like that. Anyway. But yeah, no, it's a fun ride. Pretty, we were just chatting before we started recording about the journey of being thought leaders, right? In the
That's just
community.
you, Steven.
That yeah.
I'm thought leader adjacent.
Yeah. But yeah, happy to come on and I think we're just like chatting about fantasy books in general, like books that you like, books that I like, recommendations, and we'll just kind of see where it goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was basically just an excuse to get Steven on and talking about fantasy books. I'm expecting this is probably titled Fantasy Book Recommendations from Steven from Fantology Podcast, something of that nature. But
Sweet.
we'll see. We'll see where the conversation goes. And if it's not titled that, this went way off the rails from where we're expecting, but that might be a good thing. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Steven, where's the best place for folks to find Fantology podcasts these days and follow you and all that kind of
Sure,
stuff?
yeah. Yeah, we're on all the, podcast networks. Look up Fantology, Fantolog, blah, 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 whatever, however you spell that. And we have a Discord if you want to chat with us. You can link that. We have a website as well, fantologybooks.com, where it's all up there. But yeah, we're pretty similar to, we have a lot of similar interests in terms of the specific books that we like, a lot of the
Yeah.
same favorites.
Yeah, I feel that, and they'll probably be on display to some extent today. So,
Yeah.
Stephen, you said you created some sort of like tier list on your end in preparation for this episode.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be a, S tier, A tier, whatever, but I did come up with at least like ranked kind of my authors. I did a little tour through my bookshelf and I was like, who are my favorite authors and books so I can actually have something prepared. But in my like top tier, and I think most of the interesting conversation will be in the lower tiers where we can actually like get into some differences because I think we're gonna have a lot of the same favorites. But my top tier, my top three authors right now are Joe Abercrombie, Brandon
Hmm.
Sanderson, and Robert Jordan. That hasn't changed for a while. So I feel like I may be like cementing that in place at this point.
Lock it in. So
Yeah.
Joe Abercrombie, Brandon Sanderson, I mean, that's like classic stuff in terms of what we like on Friends Talking Fantasy. We've done some Wheel of Time, including having you on, I think, when we covered Eye of the World.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you grieving the loss of Wheel of Time, the TV show?
Yeah, we just did an episode about this and to some extent, yeah. I'm not like heartbroken because it wasn't it didn't blow me away, but I do think the third season was really good and actually
Yeah.
followed the probably the best book in the series. It followed it pretty well. So it seemed like they were on track to really like in the future continue to produce some good stuff. But on the other hand, just like the first and second seasons kind of going off the rails to some extent. They weren't ever awful, but they weren't necessarily like what I wanted them to be, and there were a lot of reasons for that. But those two seasons not being great kind of lowered my excitement for the rest of the series. And I think that's kind of part of the reason why it got axed at the end of the day. But also the budget was like so high. I think nowadays it's kind of hard for networks
Yeah.
and streaming services to continue to pump stuff out that's expensive. So yeah, like short answer long, yeah. Yeah, I'm sad about it. I wish they could have kept on going with it.
Yeah, I feel it. I didn't really watch, which is like a weird thing to, I don't know if admit is the word I'm looking for. Like I don't feel shame about it, but I've always thought like uh, it's not a great sign if they can't capture the attention of
Yeah,
like someone interested enough in fantasy to create content
right,
on
right,
it. But I find
right.
that happens a lot for me with these TV shows. I did hear the third season was like the best one too, like what you're saying. I heard like critically it was found to be a lot better than the first two. But it's just like I rambled about this in my. I told you I did an episode just talking by myself for an hour
Mm,
into microphone. I rambled about this as my conclusion was just like Amazon doesn't care about you or me or anyone. And it's basically like they put in the budget where these things have to be like the next Game of Thrones, and
kinda.
none of
Yeah,
them end up being the next Game of Thrones. Even though every time one's
yeah.
coming out, it's like, this is gonna be the next Game of Thrones. It's just like the fantasy market is so much more
Mm.
saturated, I feel like, on TV now.
I heard that they're contractually obligated to produce 5 seasons of Rings of Power. Like that's part
Interesting.
of the, and don't, I guess I just said that, but I'm not like 100%, I don't have a source for that, but there was some discussion about that on our
You're a fantasy
Discord.
thought leader. You don't need
Yeah.
sources. Once you
Yeah,
become
that's
thought
right.
leader,
That's right. This is
you
now
are
a
the
source.
source.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So you can source me on this. But apparently, that's the reason why Rings of Power is still going strong with
Hmm.
like a much bigger budget even than Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
But
I like
yeah,
forget that Rings of Power still exists. Have you been watching it?
I have watched, but I've probably been even less invested in that than I was in Wheel of Time. Like if that was canceled, I wouldn't be too
You wouldn't
sad.
shed a tear.
No.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's yeah, I wouldn't notice probably. No, maybe I would. Maybe I'd just receive word on. I'm not on social media as much these days though, so I don't know. I'm sure
Mm.
I'd find out. But all right, well, Robert Jordan and Wheel of Time. The reason we got onto that is probably people have heard enough of us talking about Sanderson and Abercrombie on the show, but Robert Jordan, though we've covered a few of his books and mentioned from time to time, I would say he doesn't get nearly the same spotlight on this show as he does on Fantology, and not nearly the same spotlight as Joe Abercrombie or Sanderson gets on the show. So yeah, what makes Robert Jordan and Wheel of Time like such peak where they're being put on your this would be a small Mount Rushmore if it was just those
Right.
three, but yeah,
Yeah. I
like your
guess
top
that
three.
yeah, how many faces does Rushmore have? Five? So
Five, I
I need
think.
I need two more Rushmores.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I got
Yeah.
I got to think about that, but
We'll grab
Yeah,
from your
and
tier two when we get
don't
there.
yeah, don't feel too bad that you're not highlighting him enough because there are so many Wheel of
Yeah.
Time only content creators out there. So there is a lot of spotlight on the Wheel of Time out there, and people can find plenty of that. But for me, I think a lot of it is it's so foundational. I started reading them in my late teens, and then they became like the first big fantasy series that I completed, and it is complete, and it finishes really well.
Yeah.
Brandon didn't write all of it, but he did come in and he wrote the last three, and I think he did a pretty good job and wrapped it up as very satisfactory. I think the thing that captured me is the characters, the journey they go on through 14 books. It's slow at times, but I don't that doesn't bother me quite as much. Maybe honestly it would bother me more now than it did back when I was younger.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, I feel like once you get older you start to your time becomes more valuable or whatever. You just start to like anything that takes too long, it's just harder to hold an attention span or whatever it is. But anyway, back in the day, it didn't bother me, and I was just like there for every moment of our characters like journeying around. And
Hmm.
but by the end, they all have awesome arcs, and it's really just it's a fun series for most of it, and I yeah, it's just kind of this thing for me that will probably never be displaced. I mean,
Yeah.
Stormlight Archive will finish. I hope that by the time we get to 10 books there, it's achieved like an equal journey for all of our characters. We've got through five, and
And
I
I
think
hope
it's
I'm
going
still alive. I need to
yeah,
like, eat
it'll be
vegetables
20
regularly just
years
to,
probably
yeah.
before Stormlight finishes. And I think we'll get to a similar place where, all of our characters will have gone through this thing. It'll be a little different though, because there's the time jump and everything. And I think the characters are kind of switching up a bit by the time we get into book 6 through 10. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a long answer to your question.
Yeah, well, this is a long form podcast, so it's a good place to bring those. Well,
I, I do
there
want to
for,
say
yeah.
before we go further down in the author list, I was able to see Brandon and Joe together
Oh, you went to
as
that.
yeah,
And
yeah. So
Pierce
they
Brown was there too, right?
that's right. Pierce
If I
Brown was
remember.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that Pierce Brown was there. He was just like there as a fan, I guess.
Oh,
He wasn't part of the actual presentation, but I live in Utah and they part of Joe's signing was in Salt Lake and Brandon was like the author, friend, presenter, interviewer, whatever it was.
mm,
And that was so cool. Like two of my Rushmores of my
yeah.
you know of my three, and Robert Jordan has passed away, so not possible.
Mm,
But these are like
all the
my two
living
favorite.
Rushmores.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, yeah. Well, I guess we'll see. You got to fill out a couple more on your
I do.
Rushmore from tier
I do need
two,
to. I do
but
need to add a couple more.
that's awesome. I'm super jealous. I know Robin Hobb and Abercrombie are doing some sort of, I guess he's just like jumping from place to place and just
Yeah,
whoever
he's
like the
on his
biggest
tour.
local author is there, like moderates the thing or converses
That's
with him.
yeah, that is the
So
format.
yeah, wherever. So Utah, you go right towards Sanderson. There's not
Yeah,
no debate there. The I don't know where the Robin Hobb one is, but I assume
it's
it's wherever
in
Robin Hobb
Seattle.
lives. Okay.
She's from
Yeah.
Seattle, and I got to meet her too. She was at Dragonstone Nexus last year, and I was able to just like say hello with her and get a book signed. So that was fun. She might be on Rushmore actually. Now
Yeah.
that now that you've made me put five on there, she probably sneaks on.
I think she would be on my Rushmore as well. And it's funny, my Rushmore probably Jordan wouldn't make the cut. If I was thinking about it now though, I would have Sanderson, Joe, and I would have Robin Hobb. We can make it like the modern fantasy Rushmore
Mm.
because it's like you got to put Tolkien and there's always people you'd kind of have
Yeah,
to put
yeah,
there, even if
yeah.
they're not your personal like favorite author. If you were doing like all time Rushmore, so if we're doing
Mm.
modern fantasy Rushmore, kind of like 90s to now, then
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think Abercrombie, Sanderson, Hobb all making it there for me. So Charles was texting me, he's like, "Hey, you got to get to Seattle to go see Hobb and Abercrombie." I was like, "That would be awesome." I'm also like moving to Miami in like a couple weeks. So I was like, "That's the
Mm.
direction." So I'm in Colorado for anyone who doesn't know. I was like, "That is going the wrong direction." If I'm going from Colorado to Seattle, I'm getting farther away from where I need to get eventually. So I was that's
Yeah.
what stopped me so far. If I weren't
Well,
moving, maybe I'd make the trip.
the problem is there's someone has let you down. If there was a big
Hmm.
author that was in Denver. No, actually, he was in Denver.
He was in Denver.
He,
Okay.
yeah, he was.
What? Why
He
didn't Charles
he
text me to go to that one? I
he
guess it's because he
tweeted
thought I'd want to see Hobb.
he tweeted about being in Denver. I don't
We
know
gotta
who
find out
he
who.
yeah, I'm not sure who he did it with,
I'm gonna look it up.
but he at least tweeted about being in Denver. He did it and he did a thing in New Mexico with George R. R. Martin,
Yes,
and
Albuquerque.
he did one in I think like in Wisconsin, or it must have been maybe in Indy with Pat Rothfuss somewhere around his area up there. Yeah, I don't know who he
Wow,
did in Denver.
he's been all over the place. This is
Yeah,
a an extensive tour.
yeah.
This
He was
is
joking about it with Brandon. He's kind of like east, west, north, so just like flying all over the place.
Hmm. So Stephen Graham Jones, that's the author, like this is like outside the genre. That's the author of The Only Good Indians. That's like a famous book
Hmm.
that I've heard of, but definitely have not read. But
Okay.
yeah, so not a fantasy thought leader like yourself, but
Right. Right.
a
Right.
well-respected author in
Right.
in their own rights. Professor and a professor of English at the University of Colorado.
Huh.
Wow. He's meeting up with all his professors, right? Sanderson used to do his class over at
Yeah,
BYU.
yeah. He actually still does every
Oh,
few
he
years.
does?
He does the class, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Even though he's like a minor celebrity in the state of Utah at this point.
I feel like he's got to be like nearing dropping the minor from just a celebrity at this point,
Yeah.
and at least in Utah, wouldn't you think? Like, I mean, you're the expert on the ground over there, so
Right,
well,
right.
I'll trust your
Well,
word. But
I always tell people Utah is literally the nerdiest place in the world that you can live. And Brandon being what he is, I think if he goes anywhere, people recognize him. So
mm,
yeah, he's a celebrity.
yeah, I mean, it's hard to place sometimes like how big a fantasy author is, like, because there's like the tier of people that's like, George R. R. Martin or whatever, and maybe
Yeah,
that's just George R. R. Martin at this point, or like, yeah, and then there's J.K. Rowling. Like, those are the people that are like, okay, you're actually like legit mega famous people. And then there's like the people that if we saw them on the street, we would like lose our minds, and that's like a Sanderson or Abercrombie or whatever. But like they go into a Starbucks outside of Utah, and probably no one knows who they like. If Sanderson just goes into a Starbucks in New York City, I mean he could get recognized, but he might get out of there okay. So it's kind of weird. It's hard to
yeah,
grasp like how famous are
that's
these
fair.
people.
Like the difference is having an adaptation made or not.
Yeah. I
You know,
mean,
has your face shown up on TV?
yeah, that's fair. Has he done any like talk shows really at all, Sanderson? Uh,
And not that I know of. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you
Make the
got to have a TV
circuit
thing.
once Mistborn gets adapted, which
Yeah,
who knows if there's any
we'll
progress on
see.
that front. But all right, well, I'm jealous, but this is what happens when you're a fantasy thought leader like Steven. You meet all of these people, and when you're
Uh-huh,
just
uh-huh,
adjacent like me, you
uh-huh.
you hang out in your room and talk about fantasy. So, um, let's Steven, let's hear tier two.
So yeah, tier two is kind of interesting because I also came up with another tier of authors that I really like, books that I really like, but have stalled slash may never finish. And
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to like reconcile that with tier two.
Can I
So
guess who is on this tier then? I feel like I can
you
get at how, okay, give me the number of people that are on this tier.
there's three people
Okay,
that
I think I can go three for three.
these three people would be in either tier one or tier two, but I just like hesitate to place them
Yes.
because there's this huge caveat.
These three people are Patrick Rothfuss.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay. George R.
right,
R. Martin.
right.
Yes. And Scott Lynch is my
Yeah,
third. Is
yep,
that
yep,
okay? Three
absolutely.
for three?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I Yes, there are a few disagreements although I would
right.
still put Rothfuss. I'm like so into the King Killer Chronicle. I feel like if I were doing these tier things, I would have to put Rothfuss at the top. But it's interesting. You're like holding back. You're basically holding tier one ransom until they give you the rest of the books. Is that
Yeah,
is
I
that
think
your plan,
so.
Stephen?
I think so. Well, so here's the for years I probably would be with you, but if we're calling this book recommendations, so
Mm,
many people care about I I'm okay reading King Killer Chronicle even though the third book may never come out. Like I feel like the
yeah,
first two books are so good that I don't necessarily like need like I would love to have Doors of Stone come out, right? But
yeah.
I feel like that doesn't like lessen the value of the first two books, but a lot of people do feel that way. So
Mhm.
if we are doing book recommendations, you have to kind of give that, along with it. And
Mm,
same, same with George R. R. Martin, same with Scott Lynch. I love their books, but at the same time,
yeah.
when are we going to see more? It's just like it's hard to say, and it may be never. And you have to like accept that going into reading any of the series, or you're
It's
going to be disappointed.
interesting. Like framing it the way that you did, where like you are giving book recommendations. So if you're just kind of going down the list and you're like, okay, these are my like, I'll just recommend these to everyone people, and those are the like top three you mentioned. Then there's
Hmm.
this tier of like, these are the people that I wish I could do that with, but I have to give a caveat I feel like every
Yeah.
fantasy reader who's recommended books knows the feeling of recommending at least one of these
Yep.
three series and having to be like, I know it's not finished. Like, I promise they're really good. Like, you have to do that little dance. And yeah, all of those are top tier. I mean, A Song of Ice and Fire is interesting, like, because it is like that super phenomenon. So I guess people
Hmm.
kind of know to some extent, but there's a lot of people who don't like these are like books you could recommend to someone who's like trying to get into fantasy, but you'd almost be like, well, actually, I'm going to default to recommending Brandon Sanderson instead. Like I might recommend Mistborn before I would recommend The Lies of Locke Lamora to someone like being like, ah, where should I start in fantasy? Just because I'm like, I don't want them to read three books and then be like, oh, like I don't ever find out how this ends.
Right,
It's
right.
tough.
Yeah, yeah. If someone new to fantasy, you don't want them to have that taste of disappointment in their mouth for the first thing they
Yeah.
read. You want them to have a successful read through a trilogy and want to read more, not be like, yeah, this was fun, but kind of sucks at the end. So I don't know if I want. No, no, you want these people to continue reading in the genre.
Yes. And that's interesting way of framing this, Steven. This is uh, appreciated and why you've become a fantasy thought leader, as we've said. So what would you say
Yeah,
is your so that's like your 1B kind of, right?
yeah,
Like and
yeah.
now
One
we'll go
B
to
is
tier
probably
two.
yeah, yeah. Although Scott Lynch, I don't think even I don't know that I like Scott Lynch quite enough to be considered for Rushmore. So he may be more like 2B, but he fits onto the
Yes,
the not finished. So anyway, yeah.
thematically.
Second tier. I'm gonna throw Jim Butcher,
Mm.
Robin Hobb maybe sneaking onto first if we're gonna expand that, and Fonda Lee.
Mm. Fonda Lee is a I didn't
Yeah,
know you were like such a we've read her
Greenbone.
Greenbone trilogy.
Hmm.
So, and I'm a fan, but this is starting to get to the place
Okay.
where I'm like, If
bit
I
of
was doing
divergence.
tiers, it would take me a while, honestly, before I would start thinking about like, oh, gotta get Greenbone in there. If someone mentioned Greenbone, I'd be like, those are good. But it's just, one of the
Mm,
many series that I just think those are good about. So tell
yeah.
me about Greenbone and Fondly. Why,
I
they're
also
way up there.
have I also have a lot of series that are like, oh, those are good. And those are probably down in like tiers 3 and 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Greenbone was a series that I read 2 or 3 years ago and just like rocketed up my rankings. I loved it. All three books. I thought they got better. I thought book one was like 7 out of 10 and then 8 out of 10 and then 9 out of 10 for Jade Legacy. This is
Yeah.
Jade City, Jade War, and Jade Legacy. And it was another thing where by the end, I loved the characters so much that I was just like broken up about leaving the world, leaving the characters behind, and I had like been with them for so long.
Yeah.
And they're not as heroic characters as Wheel of Time. These are like fairly gray characters, but I feel like you get to know them so well over the years that you spend with them
Hmm.
in the series that they just like feel like, real people, and then to say goodbye was tough. And I don't whenever I feel that feeling of, the series is over and I'm really just like dejected and just really sad that I don't have any more to read. Like that's my sign of like, okay,
Yeah.
this is moving up there because I really love it. Same with TV shows, like the show whole, right? That's if I feel that, that's when things can start moving up into first and second tiers.
Hmm. That's well said. Yeah. Uh, so Greenbone, right? Urban fantasy, like setting inspired by a, I'm trying to remember, but like an Asian inspired setting. So not your
Yeah.
typical like
It's like
Western Europe fantasy.
alternative reality Japan is
Okay.
is kind of what they're
Yeah.
doing there. Yeah. It's very
So
much like Godfather. It's a mob family.
yes, yes, that's and there's some pretty clear parallels even in the story, I feel like. And I
Hmm.
would say it's so interesting hearing you talk about and like compared to Wheel of Time because we're talking about a 3 book series versus a 14 book series. But I would say that is one of Fondley's like greatest strengths as a writer is giving you that feeling like you've like known these characters forever and been with them through so much. And the time skip is done masterfully in that one and really creates that feeling for you. So I think that uh, another series that when you were talking about it reminded me of just that like evokes that feeling of wow,
Mm.
like I've been through so much with these characters and I just feel like they've changed so much and I've seen them through it all. It's like Catherine Voyage Quartet by Robert V.S. Reddick. That's one I push all the time
Mm.
on here. So that's 4 books, and we did like a read along with Robert on that. But that's so it's like a bunch of episodes of us doing that, which was like,
I read one of his books. I don't know which
is
one, and
it the
it was years ago. It was like before
Master
Fantology existed.
Assassins?
Yeah, was that like a desert themed
Yes,
set?
yes.
Yeah, it was that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have not read that one, but I do have it on audiobook. At some point I will get to
Mm.
it. So I've supported Robert, who's the nicest dude that we talked to, but it's got very it's the whole thing is set around this idea of this massive ship called the Chathrind, and it starts out with oh they're gonna take this princess across to be like a treaty bride kind of thing like
Mm.
she's gonna marry their enemy and then they're gonna be friends and that kind of stuff, but there's like
Yeah.
all sorts of characters. A lot of them are I feel like some characters being kind of in that young adult uh age too can help evoke that feeling like it's not a young adult
Mm.
series but they're in that kind of like adolescent age, and I think of Wheel of Time being that way too. It's like when you kind of see
Sure.
the characters go from kind of kids to feeling like adults, but
Yeah.
it's done naturally over time. I would say this series feels that way as well. So Anyway, that's a distraction from from
Say
the
say
tiers and
the
the
name. Say
recommendations.
the name
But
one more time
Catherine
of the series.
Voyage Quartet by Robert
Catherine
V.S.
Voyage Quartet.
Reddick. Yeah,
Okay.
love that one. They're
Okay.
like, yeah, it's and if you like naval stuff, it's
Mm.
pretty cool. Yeah.
I haven't read enough naval fantasy. I mean, the one that I think about for naval fantasy is Robin Hobb's Life Ship Traders.
Yeah.
Other than that, there was one by Anthony Ryan, the Dragon
Mm,
series. I read the first one, and it was pretty naval. I don't know if it continues that way, but I only read the first book. I thought it was like good, but maybe not good enough to continue going on.
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
there's
I like the
Red
idea
Seas
of naval
Under Red
fantasy.
Skies as well. And
Yeah. That's a
so I know you've read that one. If Scott Lynch is in your
yep,
mix for
yep.
sounds like 2B, but yeah, that's good. Live Ship Traders is amazing. That's such an incredible series. I actually think better than the Farseer trilogy when it comes to
That's
Robin
my
Hobb.
favorite of her. That's
Yeah.
my favorite of her trilogies
Mm,
of any of
yeah.
her sub series of Realm of the Elderlings.
Yeah, that one's
Yeah.
awesome. Like most complex character. It's weird because it's like I don't think of Hobb in the same like vein as I think of like Joe Abercrombie, where it's like, oh, Abercrombie's so dark and these like gritty, complex characters, and they're all kind of like bad guys and stuff. But like Kenneth in Robin Hobb's Live Ship Traders is like one of the most quintessential versions of that kind of character. Like so complex,
Yeah.
very like not a good person, but like in that Abercrombie way where you're like, think this person is like a vile person, but I'm so captivated by this character. So yeah,
Yeah,
love Live
for
Ship.
sure. I need to do a reread of her stuff. It's been years. And we haven't, I don't think we've done even like any episodes on Fantology because I read those all before we started and we just haven't revisited them. But yeah, great stuff.
Well, if you ever want to
Uh,
chat Hob, I'm I'm all game. But let's I'm trying to remember who else was on your on this tier
oh,
because I got
Jim Butcher was the other one that we
yeah.
didn't. Yeah.
So Butcher, it's interesting. We have Charles and I have each read. I'm trying to remember how many Charles has, but I've read the first two books in
Okay.
Dresden, and I think we're kind of, hopefully, we're deep enough in the episode now where I can say this. Like, we're kind of just not as big fans of Dresden and Jim Butcher as, I mean, I
As
don't know. Jim Butcher, I don't know. I'm sure he's a lovely person, so I won't say I'm not as big a
uh
fan of Jim Butcher, but his writing, just haven't really become big fans after reading the first couple books. And we also know that fan base is, we'll say, passionate, very passionate, and
mm,
expressive of their opinions and all those
okay.
kind of things. So we've almost kind of avoided too much Dresden talk because they're like, do we even want to like wade in there when we're not like huge fans
Mm.
and they're the fans. Yeah, I'm sure you're all lovely
That's
people too, but
that's interesting because so we've done reviews of the books and
yeah,
when we review things, we get details wrong, as you probably you
yeah,
and
we
Charles
do
probably
too.
actually no, you probably never do. But over at
Right.
Fantology, we do actually get details wrong every now and then. And for whatever reason, like sometimes people on the comments hop on and correct us with like that's fine, you know.
Yes.
And usually it's in a nice way. The worst experiences I've had with that are on our Jim Butcher reviews, where people have gone on and been like actively mad at us for like getting the names of some, minor character wrong or getting something like slightly mixed up. And it's like, thanks for telling us, but at the same time, like, I'm sorry, you know? Yeah.
It's
So that's
tough being a
interesting because
generalist.
I was not
It's
aware that that you think the fan base is just kind of like that.
passionate is the word that I'll keep using.
Okay,
Yeah,
passionate.
it's
Yeah.
just that's my grasp from seeing things like that. And we haven't even had those interactions. So it's not like I have some bad interaction with a Dresden fan that is informing this. I've just like heard from
Just
people,
observed. Okay.
yes, and observed and seen some of that. So no shade on this. Maybe will be my first when people get. But if you are a Dresden fan, then like don't attack me for saying that Dresden fans are super passionate, because then you will just be, kind of making
That's
my
right.
point. So
You've
just
done this yourself.
right. If you're a Dresden fan and you want to go against that stereotype that rudely other people that aren't me have spread about you, then rate us
Hmm.
5 stars and write a really nice review.
That's
And
right.
just say you're a Dresden fan, and we'll all see the truth, how lovely
That's right.
and,
I like that.
how lovely
Reverse
you are.
psychology there.
Right. Trying
So
over here.
I can understand bouncing off the first couple books. I think it wasn't until, I mean, I thought they were okay, but I think around books, I don't know, five, six, seven, they start to get like really good. And then in books like 10, 11, 12, like, okay, like this is pretty sweet. I see what he's doing. But I understand that, you may not want to read through several books of stuff that you feel is just okay. And so I respect you and Charles maybe not latching on.
It's interesting. I mean, some of what you're talking about before around like, oh, we become adults and then like our time we feel is very valuable or at least more limited. And
Hmm.
it's because the clock is ticking on us all, Stephen. So
Yeah.
and when you're reading a just okay book or you're watching, it's funny when people recommend me like, oh, the show is great, but like it doesn't really pick up until the third season. I'm like, that's a lot to ask at this stage of our lives, to
Uh-huh.
watch through, be like 10 episodes a season, an hour an episode. It's like, you're asking me to spend 20 hours not enjoying myself during my time that I am free, where I really, really, really want to be enjoying
Uh,
myself. So I've always found that to be kind of tough, and
yeah.
reading full
Yeah.
books, like reading 5 or 6 and then being like, "Ooh, this is really taking off." Is like maybe it's worth it, but it's really hard when you are at the front end being asked to do all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I started reading that series again when I was probably my late. No, it might have been like early 20s. So but this is again before Fantology existed. So I had again that foundation. I guess the key to really getting into a fantasy series is, especially a longer one, is start it before you're acutely aware of the clock ticking. And
Yes.
then it doesn't matter as much. And then you can just freely enjoy yourself. And then once you're like full anxiety adult, then it doesn't
Yeah.
matter because you've already got that, you've already front loaded the time.
Our recommendation to our listeners is go be a child again and
Yes,
start these books. And it's
that's it.
amazing what you can accomplish, and how great. I mean, it is, I will. There are books though that really like that Chatham Voyage series. Like I read that, I think like late teens, early 20s or something like that too. And it's like, that's
Mm,
part of why it holds such a special place in my heart. It's something that can, I don't know, do we just grow old and cold and cynical? Uh, and then it's harder for those books to break through.
right.
Who knows? I mean, clearly Fondly managed with you. So,
Yeah, so you grow old and cold and cynical, and then Joe Abercrombie becomes your favorite
right.
author.
Exactly. Well said.
That's how that
Uh,
works.
yeah. All right. Tell me about
So,
tier three.
yeah, so I did a thing with tier three. I have what I call a unique tier. So these are books that are kind of in tier three, but they're all kind of like a little bit different than your regular fantasy series. So like I would freely recommend these, but I would say like, oh, this one's a little bit different in this way.
Yeah.
So that tier has four authors in it. And I guess we're doing book recommendations, but this really just turned into author recommendations, but same thing.
Yeah.
So I've got Stephen Erickson and Malzahn.
Mm,
I have Josiah Bancroft and Books of Babel, and he also has a new one called
mm,
Hexologist. I have Murderbot by Martha Wells
mm.
and Travis Baldree with his cozy fantasy stuff.
Yeah.
And these are really just kind of like different. I don't know. I mean, Murderbot is sci-fi, and we're just like, I don't know. I don't read a ton of sci-fi, but I also think it's kind of like unique sci-fi. and it's like
Hmm.
really short and it's kind of like got a funny voice to it, which is, I don't know, that's not like super weird about sci-fi, but for whatever reason, I was looking at my bookshelf, was like, this one's a little bit different. Josiah Bancroft, he writes fantasy, but it's his writing is you have to really like enjoy the craft of writing, I think, to like
Mm.
fully get behind his books because he writes beautifully. But especially in his new book, Hexologist, it's like the writing itself is like a character in the book that you have to like really
Can you tell me
enjoy.
what that book is about? Because I've read Senlin Ascends, and I did
Uh-huh.
really enjoy it. I don't know why I didn't get back to reading that series yet, but the Hexologist, I don't know a lot about it, but like the things I've heard are kind of along the lines of what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
what's that book about?
So, Books of Babel, which is Senlin Ascends, the
Yeah,
Senlin books, that's a four-book series, and it's steampunk and it's kind of zany. It's kind of a weird series, but
yeah.
it's fun. I enjoyed it. Hexologist is, I think he's gonna turn this into something of a series, although I'm not sure exactly what the plan is. But it's like, let's see, I read it a couple years ago. I think it's in a kind of like an alternative, like real world. I feel like it maybe takes place in London, although I don't remember exactly. And it follows a main character who's a husband and a wife, and they are something of like police detectives with a magical twist to it. And they're going through it's just like a so it's kind of a procedural drama almost, but it's written in a way where it's just kind of weird and zany in the right ways, but the writing is really good. I think he might be a professor as
Hmm.
well before he
I
started
know his
writing. I think,
character in Senlin
yeah.
Ascends is well, he's a teacher, I think, not a
I think
professor, right?
he was a
The
professor or
you're
a
saying,
teacher or something.
yeah.
But his writing is really good, but almost like sometimes distractingly so. Like it's just full
Hmm.
of $10 words. And I can get behind someone saying like it's too much. I mostly enjoyed it, but it's one that you have to like focus on when you read. If you're just listening, it might be hard.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean that's kind of in the I'm sure they're very different books, but that's kind of in the Malzahn vein too,
Yeah,
is like the
exactly.
like this like this is good, but this feels like work. And again, we're back to the idea of
Yes.
like we have limited free time and do you want to spend it like in this very like I'm investing in this thing. It's like, well, I
Yeah,
feel like I
yeah.
do that from 9 to 5, so why do I have to do that from like
Right, right.
7 to 10 as well? But
I'm
yeah,
reading I'm reading book seven of Oz and Book the Fallen right now. And
first read through of
yeah,
the
first read through.
because this is funny because if I can just go back to 2020 when I first stumbled upon Fantology Podcast and we were
Yeah.
just starting up Friends Talking Fantasy. You all maybe had like whatever 20 some odd episodes out, something like
Uh-huh.
that. One of the first ones I listened to was book two of Malazan, I think. Like,
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
think, oh, geez, I'm blank on what it's, but I don't think it was Gardens of the Moon. It was the second one, which is, what's that one
Deadhouse
called
Gates.
again? Dead House Gates.
Deadhouse Gates,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that was one of your first episodes, and I listened to that because I'd read it
This,
relatively recently
yeah.
at that point. So that means
Yes.
you are that this speaks to the process of reading Malzahn, right? That was 2020,
Yes.
and now you're at book 7.
Not everyone needs to read it in this way, but I have strung out the read of Malazan over
Yes.
years. Yeah,
You're
I'm on
reading
book
like a
seven
book
now.
a year.
It's like a book a year, and it's really not the best way to read it because these books are like so incredibly complex that every time I go to read a new one,
This is
I have
tough.
to do like I have to do several hours of recapping on what happened in the previous books, and it's definitely not the way to do it, but these are not my favorite books. I enjoy it's like enjoyment on a different level. Like you said, it is kind of work, but there's like a lot of payoff in the work, and I think the books do a lot of cool things, so I'm committed to continuing to read them. but I don't enjoy them as much as other Fantology members that are on me to continue the series.
Hmm.
And so I am going to read them because I want to know what happens at this point. And I think there's a lot of cool things and characters and just like the world is really interesting. But I may have given up if not for my friends like wanting me to press on.
Yeah, and isn't that the theme of so many fantasy novels anyway? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, well said.
I would have
Yeah.
given up if my friends didn't push me to press on. I mean,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I may not be able to read Malzahn for for you, Stephen, but I can. I don't know what the equivalent of
Right.
carrying you would be, but
Right.
I can turn the pages.
I
Uh,
love it.
yeah,
So then
those.
the other two that I put on here was have you guys read Murderbot? I
We have,
kind of did
yeah,
like
or
okay.
just the first book of it though, like
Okay.
just all
Yeah.
systems read. You know,
Yeah.
quirky, fun book about like a murderous cyborg that just wants to
Uh-huh.
watch TV, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There are I think seven. Two of them are longer length books. The rest of them are shorter length, and I've liked them. I like them quite a bit. I feel like I'm kind of wondering after reading all seven, like where is this series going? I don't really feel like there's a grand plan, like an encompassing plot, which kind of lowers it down on the list because I feel like I don't know. I usually enjoy at least if they're standalones or if they're kind of like separate ways of telling a story. I like there to at least be like a larger thing happening that we're progressing towards. With a murder bot, I just kind of feel like they are just released mostly episodic, but it's
Mm,
fun and I like the character and I like the voice and I think they're funny
they
reads as
are.
well.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've only read the one, but that is what I'd imagine. I mean, speaking of the idea of not really having much of like direction and plot and stuff, you mentioned Travis Baldry's cozy fantasy work, right? Legends and Lattes would be the most well-known one.
Hmm.
I haven't read it. Charles did and had very positive things to say, which I think he Charles is not like a cozy fantasy guy, so I think he like went
Mm.
in even a little bit like skeptical and ready to not like it. And then he came out and was like, dude, it's really good actually. So
Nice.
curious to hear you as someone who's putting right Sanderson, Abercrombie at the top. Like sounds like you do really enjoy the
Yeah,
cozy fantasy as well.
it was really different. And I know there's other cozy fantasies out there. I feel like this was kind of the first one that like introduced the idea. I think there's one called like House on the Cerulean Sea that I
Yeah, that
want to
one's really
read.
good. Yeah, I
Okay, you
definitely
have read that
recommend
one?
that one. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Charles and I read that one, and we both
nice.
really liked it. Yeah, it's
Okay,
very funny, quirky, like especially if you like. No, that's the same voice at all as like Murderbot, but that kind of thing where just like the tone of it is kind of
okay.
quirky and funny and silly, and
Yeah,
they people
yeah,
will say it's like a warm hug in book form. I would say, yeah,
nice.
that kind of sums it
Okay.
up.
Yeah. So after going on a little bit of a rant about how I want like a big overarching plot in all my book series, like now I'm flipping it back and saying like in these cozy fantasies, there sometimes it is nice to like not be saving the world and we're just like rebuilding a coffee shop or a bookshop in the
Hmm.
second book. Bookshop, bookshelves and bone dust, bookshops and something about books and bone
I'll look it
dust
up.
is the second book. The second book I didn't think
Bookshops
was
and bone
quite
dust.
as bookshops. Okay. I didn't think it
Yeah.
was quite as good as Legends and Lattes, but it appeals to that like it has a bit of like a progressionist feel to it where we're like now we're trying to like get this piece of the coffee shop back in line and we're like leveling up. It's almost like a little bit of like one of those mindless app games that you're building up
What, like Candy Crush?
not no not like but like you're we've like did you ever play like Lemonade Tycoon or those games
No.
from
Wait,
when we were
is that like Roller Coaster Tycoon or no?
same type
Same
of vibe
people?
where you maybe I don't know if it's the same people or not, but like the vibe is, you've got your thing that you're managing and you're like slowly making it better in a lot of ways. And that's what Legends and Lattes is. but with fun characters at the same time, and you just get like really invested in the small
Mm.
stakes. And yeah,
I mean, what's cool about cozy fantasy, I think uh, when I hear you compare and contrast something like Murbaugh, where you really like it, but like you're bothered by the lack of an overarching plot, and then something like a cozy fantasy where that doesn't bother you, it's like to quote the great Mark Wahlberg in or not Mark Wahl, wait, is it? Who says this line in The Departed? I think it's Wahlberg, actually. It's like, uh, I know what you are and I know what you not. And I think it's so important, like when you know what a book is, right? Like a
yeah,
book knows what it is
right,
and knows what
right.
it's presenting itself as and is marketed as like cozy fantasy. It's like,
Uh-huh.
well, you go in and there's no expectation, like you're kind of silly if you come out of that being like, but there's no overarching plot. It's like, what did you think you were reading? But I think
Yeah,
Murderbot, I think by the end even of the first book, I felt like it was setting itself up to be something with a clear overarching
yeah.
plot. Like I won't
And
say spoilers, but it
I guess
feels like that.
I might have been selling Murderbot a little bit short. It does get into the plot that you're referencing. That does kind of become a bigger thing. But I guess that without doing spoilers, like then later on, you kind of like circle back and I feel like did we really make any progress or not?
Yeah, it was the friends we
Yeah.
made along the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that. I like that idea. It's kind of what Sanderson says as well in his lectures about like every book has a promise, and as an author,
Mm,
you have to like fulfill that promise. And it can be
yeah.
different from book or series or whatever, but you've got to set that up for the reader and then make sure that like as you're going along, you're making progress in whatever that is.
Yeah. Oh, you remember that movie Pacific Rim? Uh, did you ever watch that?
I've never seen it. I know exactly what book it is or what movie it is. And I know it's like so bad that it's good type of thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's just like robots fighting giant monsters, like alien-y things, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. Um, and yeah, it is one of the like the acting is not the most stellar. The plot is super contrived and tropey and stuff like that. But I remember just going in and someone basically just told me like, yeah, this is giant robots fighting against like monster alien things or whatever. They said it in a more succinct way. It was like robots fighting monsters or whatever. And I was like, okay, so that's what I'm stepping into this theater to watch. And
Uh,
then it was exactly that. And it was action packed, it was fun, and it was entertaining. But I think if I went in completely without any expectations, like I don't usually gravitate toward the just like Basham action
yeah.
kind of movies. And I'd be like, I don't know if that was that much
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
But it was just the mental preparation of, oh, like, okay, we're doing robots fighting monsters. Let's see. And it was exactly what the
Uh-huh.
promise was delivered, as you would
Uh-huh.
say, for how Sanderson speaks about it.
It's like I just saw it to the same vein. I just saw Mission Impossible, the new one, the other
Hmm.
day. Won't do any spoilers, but for me, every Mission Impossible movie, I never remember what happens in the plot,
Yeah,
but I can think back to like what were the big action set pieces, stunts, whatever, and that's how I like separate the movie to movie. And this was the same thing. There was no subtlety in it. The
yeah,
plot was presented right from the beginning. Okay, these are the like three steps we need to take to save the world. We're gonna go do them, but you go for the stunts and the cool action and stuff, and
right.
it delivers. It delivers in that way. But if you're gonna like analyze that from a story perspective, you're like, what was that? Like, there's so many plot holes in this thing. Like, but it doesn't matter because you're not there for that.
Exactly. Yeah, but we are here for all four. Are there four total tiers, Stephen?
So
Are we
yeah,
getting?
we're getting down there. I have a third. That was the unique tier. I have a third tier
Gotcha.
and a fourth tier, and then I had some like authors that I want to read more of that
Okay.
I that we can just kind of like vomit out. And then I have a few more that I haven't read that I want to read.
Oh, that's
So
cool too. Yeah.
yeah, the bottom maybe this could be a realm where people maybe get some more recommendations that are already familiar with the more popular ones that we've talked about.
Yes.
But let's go through the third tier and the fourth tier kind of quickly. Maybe we don't need to talk about all of them, but anyway, my third tier is Pierce Brown, R.F. Kuang, Shishin Liu, I think that's how you say his name, Three Body Problem, and
Mm.
James Islington is that's tier three.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So is that
And
how you say James? I was trying to figure out if it was Islington or it is Islington then
it's like Islington, I think. Yeah.
Islington because he's like
Yeah.
Australian or something then
He's
too.
Australian.
So it's like,
Yeah, he's actually one of the we interviewed him.
oh,
And
you
he was
did?
really cool. Yeah. Yeah, he's a
Oh,
very
that's
cool guy.
awesome. I
Did you
just
read
read The Will
his
of the Many
Okay.
and it was so
Okay.
I loved it.
I'm
Like
assuming you really liked it because it checks all the boxes of other books
the
that you
King
like.
Killer stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
He's
for sure.
but I mean he you can tell he was inspired. I mean, he wears on his sleeve, literally his book sleeve says
Hmm.
that he's inspired to write by like Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn and uh, The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I was like, okay, like
Yeah.
this person wants to write because of those people. They're probably
Right,
gonna
right.
deliver, and he totally does. Like, great rec for King Killer fans.
So I think his first series, what's it called? The Shadow of What Was Lost, or the Lycanius
Lycanius
trilogy.
trilogy.
It's
Yeah, I
not,
haven't
wait,
read
is it?
that.
Yeah, it is a trilogy.
Yeah, I think it
That
is.
one was good. It wasn't amazing, but it was good. It was good enough to where when I saw he had this new book, I was like, I liked his first trilogy. I'm going to continue with the author.
Yeah,
But yeah, with The Will of the Many, he has a chance to really like rocket up this list if he can continue to deliver bangers like that one, because
yeah,
that book was awesome. Loved it.
I think so too. Yeah, it's interesting too. He goes with a, uh, so it's a for folks who aren't familiar, it's an Academy story. It's about a character who this isn't a spoiler because it's like you find this out in the first chapter, I'm sure. Like
Hmm.
a prince, but whose land got conquered, and now he's on the run, false name, trying to make his way in the empire sort of that conquered him. It's like a caste system with like
Yeah.
all these different tiers of people that like cede their will to the folks above them. So it's just like uh, you're extremely powerful if you're near the top. Like people are basically giving you like their life force kind of.
Yeah.
So
Caste system plus magic system combined.
yes. So it's got some of those like hard magic system elements that you can see influence from maybe Sanderson, but a lot of the Academy story and like the way that that whole part is written feels very King Killery, and
Hmm.
the character does have a lot of these like prodigy, I'm good at everything
Yeah.
moments that
Yeah.
we know and love and also make fun of. So
Right.
yeah, it's like what do you think of the first person present tense of the Will of the Many?
Yeah. Usually I don't love that, but it stopped bothering me pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I, you just kind
I
of
think
like zone into it.
yeah, you do. You kind of you just get used to it. It's like you almost have to do that because there was no framing story for it. It's just
Mm,
like being recorded in live action type of thing. There's a
yeah,
suspension of disbelief in that, like I'm reading this thing that's happening at the same time that the author's telling, like how does this work exactly? But you just kind of like, okay, that's what the story is, and it
yeah,
works out. It works out just fine.
yeah. Agreed. Okay, you had RF Kwong on there. We've definitely
Mhm.
talked a lot of Kwong on our show, and so trying to remember who else was on this
Pierce
list
Brown's on
here. Pierce
there.
Brown.
Pierce Brown
That's
could be higher. I've only read the first three Red Rising, and I've heard that books five and six are incredible, but book four I bounced off of because it was just
yeah.
really slow, and at the time I couldn't get into it. But I do intend to get back into those probably when book seven comes out, so I can just
Hmm.
finish the series.
Yeah. I'm It's tough when I haven't read any of them. Charles has read at least some of them, but
Mhm.
heard great things. But it's tough when once there starts being a lot of books and I haven't read them yet, again, I start being like, oh
Yeah.
geez, like now to catch up is a lot.
Interestingly, Red Rising, I think also has a lot of comparisons with The Will of the Many in that
Interesting.
it's a Romanesque fantasy setting, and it's very much academy, prodigy
Mm,
type of thing going on. Red Rising feels a little more YA, just in the
yeah.
way that it's kind of like dystopian-ish as well, mixed in there. But it's a solid trilogy. It's also a first person present
Oh,
thing, if I
interesting.
remember it. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then yeah, R.F. Kuang has a lot of she's got a lot of stuff. She's just so smart. Whenever I read her books, I'm like, this person is so much smarter than me.
Yeah, I get that too. I'm like, not, I don't think, oh, wow, this person's way smarter than Steven. Like, I think it,
Uh-huh.
I'm just like, geez, like, if I had to compare this person's intellect to Steven, no, I
Yeah.
think when I'm reading it, I'm also like, this person's way too smart for me. And I'm also like, but okay, so you read Babel presumably
Uh-huh.
then as well. Like,
Yeah.
so that book is really good, but it's so dense. And I
Yeah.
think I'm kind of interested with Kwong. I feel like her books like are getting from like a literary perspective. They're probably getting like better and better, but then from a like Dylan sits down and enjoys his free time
That's totally
perspective,
fair.
they're
Yeah.
getting worse and worse. And I don't know how to like square that because I'm
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
actually liked the Poppy War trilogy the best of anything she's written. And in her head, she's probably like, yeah, I wrote that when I was like, she was like in her late teens, like getting into her early 20s as she was doing that. She's probably like, oh yeah, that
Uh-huh.
was my like immature little fantasy, epic fantasy thing, but now I'm doing my real work. And I'm like, actually, that's like my favorite, but it's
Yeah.
tough.
That's that's probably an explanation of what I meant when I said like it seems like she is just a lot smarter than me. Because yeah, from a literary perspective, this is probably the highest quality like pure literature on the list. Which I don't know, that could be a longer discussion because I feel like there's this weird perception that fantasy is not literature in the same way that other
Yeah.
stuff is. And I really disagree with that because I feel like all of the same things you can pull from classic literature you can get from a lot of these fantasy series that don't get enough credit. But anyway, that's a side thing for sure and
Oh, for
probably
sure. And
more of a rant.
that would be an interesting conversation, though. But my aside on that is like a lot of literary stuff actually was kind of fantasy or at least like speculative fiction. And then like it's old enough now where we're like, that's literature, capital L. Like I'm
Yeah.
talking about like Frankenstein and Dracula. It's like these books, like I read Frankenstein, like uh, that
Hmm.
is speculative fiction. Like
Right.
but it's just really old and obviously it has a lot of interesting themes, but so do a lot of the things that we read. So maybe
Yeah.
when stuff gets old enough that we're reading now,
It's
it'll
just
start.
got to
And you
prove
can
the
see that's
test of
like
time, I guess.
yeah, like even Lord of the Rings is starting to like eke its way into like
Mm,
being considered, it's not being considered whatever, Tale of Two Cities, but it's still like seen a little
yeah.
differently in
It's on reading lists now for,
yeah,
high school classes or whatever.
right.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So she has a new book coming out this summer
I
as
saw
well.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
see
got
her
a
hanging out with Sarah El Arifi, who've had on the show a couple times. She's awesome. She's been like some of our
mm,
favorite interviews, super insightful. She's like Final Strife and the Bow Drum. And then she did like a uh, Fae Bound, like one of those like Fae series.
okay.
But she I always see her and Rebecca Kwong must be like buddy buddy. Like everything on Instagram, like Rebecca Kwong's stories are just like those two hanging out. Like so, yeah.
Nice.
I've been seeing
Yeah.
that on her like book tour. I'm not sure when I'll read her new book, but
All right, let me vomit out a fourth tier and
yes,
we can quickly recap those and then we'll just do like a want to read more section where I have
yeah,
like 15 different authors because my TBR is way too long. So
yeah.
fourth
Vomit
tier
away.
yeah, I have Christopher Buehlman,
Yeah.
Black Tongue Thief, and The
The
Daughter's
Daughter's
War.
War.
And he
Yeah.
has other stuff too, but it's not quite
Horror.
fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Brent Weeks, Brian McClellan, Benedict Jaka, who does urban fantasy kind of like a
Okay.
Jim Butcher-esque. So
Interesting. Not
that
super
may,
familiar.
yeah, you may not have come across him. And Shauna Lawless, have you read hers?
No.
She does, it's like
Oh,
Irish.
Shauna. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I like know her through social media way back in the when there used to be this like website. It was called Twitter.
Yeah.
You were
Twitter.
on there, I
Yeah.
believe.
That's
It's
right.
yes, long ago. I know her from like that, and then she like became an author like after like I think
Yeah.
I don't know if she was like a reviewer or what, but yeah, super nice. But haven't
Yeah.
gotten to her books yet.
Her books are cool. I would say they're primarily like if I was gonna group them, they're more like a romantic fantasy, but not
Hmm.
romantasy because romantasy almost has to be like the spicy element to it,
Mm.
right? And I haven't read any romantasy because I just know it's not really gonna be my thing. That's probably not the best call. Like I should probably at least read one, but anyway, I
So
haven't
you
yet.
haven't read like Court of Thorns and Roses, or
No,
I think you should read it. I'm not even saying you will like it.
but at least
Yeah,
to
but
understand
just
better.
yeah, it's one of those
Yeah,
like you're a you're a fantasy thought leader, and the world needs to know
right, right.
what you would think of A
That's
Court
right.
of Thorns and Roses.
Yeah. Eventually, I probably should. I haven't yet, but I guess my point in this is for people that like romantasy and like I feel like my approach to these people would be like, you should read other fantasy too, like the fantasy that I like. And this may be like a bridge, there's this series that's primarily, it wears the romantic elements on its sleeve, but it's not romantasy. It's more of kind of like a traditional like Vikings, fantasy, like 10th century. It's based off real history, which is cool. Like real
Hmm.
Irish history mixed in with like magical elements. Yeah, so there's that one. Brent Weeks, he does Lightbringer and Night Angel. Did you read those ever?
Brent Weeks is like my how I describe it. You know, like we probably each have at least like one author that makes no sense why we haven't read that author given what we
Mm,
like and everything else.
and
Like
he's
Brent
that one.
Weeks is that author for me.
Okay.
Like I don't know why I haven't read Brent Weeks, but I
Yeah.
haven't.
He's like his books are good. He's in the list of a bunch of authors that I've read books of and they're good, but not necessarily like amazing. And
Yeah,
if Christopher Buehlman writes more, he could probably move up the list. I've liked the
we
two that
love
he's
Buellman.
written.
Yeah, those
Nice.
two are great.
Yeah.
Especially like Black Tongue Thief for me. Like I think Daughter's War was like also a very great read. Like that's actually the most recent thing we talked about on the show is Daughter's War. But I
Uh-huh.
just think for my subjective, what I like Black Tongue
Yeah.
Thief was like
Yeah.
perfect, you know.
Yeah. Daughter's War
Very
just
funny.
very heavy.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
good, but you know,
And
need that
and Brian
smarter
McClellan
mind.
is kind of like in there with Brent Weeks as another one who's got a bunch of books that I liked, uh, but maybe not like as high as other authors.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Powder Mage by McClellan is like it's definitely very good. And when I'm reading, I'm like, this is good. But then I'd never find myself being like, oh, like that would be the first book I'd recommend to this person. This is like
Yeah.
in the mix of the kind of books that I like.
Yeah. Okay. I'm ready to vomit out. How many do I have? One, two, three, four, five, nine, 10? Nine or 10
Yeah,
authors here.
want to read more.
Yeah. Want to read more of these. I've read a few. I want to read more. So I don't know where to place them exactly. So first one is Mark Lawrence. I know you guys love Mark Lawrence.
Yes.
And I've read Broken Empire, which I
Hmm.
understand is a lot darker than his other
Yes.
books. I've heard this Librarians series or
Yes, that's
the
like Book of
library
the
series.
Ancestor
Yeah.
and yeah.
Or no, no, no. His newest, the book that wouldn't burn, the
Oh,
library
sorry. I don't
series. Is
know.
that what it's
Yeah,
called?
you are correct. The library series is Book That
Yeah.
Wouldn't Burn and like Book That Broke the World and that whole thing.
Right.
I'm
I've heard
Book of the
those are really good.
Ancestor is its own, starting with Red
Yeah.
Sister. Yes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. But yeah, I've heard
Um,
this most recent one's really good. Have you read those, the library ones?
I've read the first two. I haven't gotten to the most recent one
Okay.
that he
Okay.
just came out. It's very good. I mean, I would say that it's it's kind of like it's more like experimental, like some things he's doing. I feel like he's like trying
Mm.
a lot of new things. I would My favorite is Book of the Ancestor and like Red Sister. If you were going to
Okay.
read more Mark Lawrence, I uh, I would recommend Red Sister as though
Okay.
I think he's getting very good reviews for uh, um, this whole library trilogy. So I'm sure everyone's liking it, not just longtime Mark Lawrence fans. But I usually recommend Red Sister as my like where to start with
Mm.
Mark Lawrence, just because
Nice.
I think Broken Empire is a good fit for you and what you like, so I wouldn't
Broken
hesitate
Empire, I could see
recommending
it
that.
turning
But
off
like,
some people though.
yeah, just because of the intensity of the violence and
Yeah.
like sexual assault and things like that is like, uh, I I'm just quicker to be like, if I don't know the person as well, be like Red Sister. And it's my favorite, even
Mm.
everything aside. So you haven't read
Yeah.
those yet, I'm assuming.
I've not. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I want to. That's
Yes.
hence the
Hence
yeah,
the
yeah.
list.
Yes. Okay, ML Wang, Sword of Kaigen.
Hmm.
And
Haven't read.
she has another one as well that I haven't read yet. That's pretty popular.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's on there. Ken Liu, Dandelion
Hmm.
Dynasty. I read the first one and I
Mm.
liked it, but I understand it's four and I have not continued yet. I
Have
understand the
you
story
read his
kind of
short stories at all?
no, but I've heard those are good.
Those are like, I've actually only read his short stories.
Mm,
Check out The Paper Menagerie. That's like, it was
okay.
like Hugo Award winning.
Oh, nice.
If people still care about the Hugos, I know there's like a million controversies or whatever, but
Yeah.
yeah, that story's really good, and you can just like Google the Paper Menagerie, and it's like I don't think it's not like illegal. I think it's like uploaded
Mm, it's
somewhere
just out there.
legally.
Okay.
Yeah, so check that one out. Yeah, his short stories are what I think he initially like became big for.
Mm.
Yeah.
And he translated Three Body Problem.
Yes, I heard
That's
that.
that's where I first saw his name.
Mm.
John Gwynn is on the list. I read
Yes.
two of the Blood Sworn, I want to say.
Is
Is
that
like
the like Shadow of the Gods?
yes. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And I haven't finished that one yet, but from what I've heard, his first series was like Malice, and I
Hmm.
don't remember the name of the series.
Fate of the Fallen, I believe,
Okay. I've heard
is that
that one
right?
is like the best of his books.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because
I
I
haven't
liked
gone
the
back and read
Bloodsworn,
those.
like I like those like okay, but I haven't finished it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I haven't read I want to read Fate of the Fallen too.
I have Bobiverse on here. I know this is fantasy. But that's very much a sci-fi. I do read some sci-fi. And that's just like a really goofy sci-fi book that has four or five in the series and plan on continuing at some point.
Hmm.
Have you come across Justin Lee Anderson, The Lost War?
The name, yeah, I know of
Okay.
Justin Lee Anderson.
I read the
Probably.
first two. I don't remember the name of the second book. I think he's writing the third book now. It's an
Hmm.
interesting book. The first book has really like massive twist to it that works pretty well, but was pretty unique. So yeah,
Nice.
I would recommend those ones if you're looking this far down the list. Nicholas Eames,
Hmm.
Kings of the Wild. I haven't read the follow-up yet, and I don't know if he's written any more than those two.
No, he would have to. We love Nick Eames. We had him on the show too. Um, he would have to be on your list of of folks who have published great novels and have yet to deliver the
Mm,
final. Though I think, we'll give him some more grace than like the George R. R. Martins of the world too. It's been like over a decade or whatever, but yeah,
okay.
we're still waiting on that one. But love those. I haven't read God, I'm like blanking Bloody Rose. I haven't read it either, so
Mm, okay.
yeah, Kings of Wild is
Okay.
fantastic though.
Daniel Abraham, Dagger and Coin is on here, are the
Mm,
first book. And I think he has another one like the Long Prince Quartet,
I've heard of
I want to
that.
say. And he also writes The Expanse. He's half of the Expanse team.
Yeah.
So I should read more of him. And he's like supposedly George R. R. Martin's like chosen one to finish the series, should it ever come to that.
Is this
Like
like Stephen the thought leader came up with this or is
no,
this
no,
sourced?
this is one of our buddies on Discord is a big fan of the series and said they've worked together quite a bit. And he's like, if it's an if someone was to finish A
Hmm.
Song of Ice and Fire, like if Georgia wanted that, it would make sense that this guy Daniel Abraham would be the one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've always had
Yeah.
trouble. It's like in if it weren't like in super poor taste to like title an episode like who should finish A Song of Ice and Fire if George R. R. Martin dies an untimely death, like
Yeah.
I'm probably not ever going to like have an episode focused on that, but I do think it's an interesting conversation of like if you try to frame it in more of a, let's say George just said, as I continue to live my very long life for the next, as I live to be 110 years old, I've decided I'm not going to continue to write this series. Instead, I'm going to choose someone to write it. That's more the nice framing of it, of course.
Right, right.
I've always found it hard to pick some because then you'll hear people be like, Brandon Sanderson, he did such a good job with Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. I'm like,
Uh
I cannot imagine anything like less appealing to everyone involved
that
than
would be a
Sanderson finishing Game of
that
Thrones.
would be a disaster for everyone involved.
Yeah, the voice would be quite off, I believe.
Uh-huh.
I
It's
there's no way he'd say yes anyway, so
like, wait,
it's a
all of a
moot
sudden they
point.
started doing in-world swearing instead of real swearing?
Yeah, it'd be like, oh, dire wolves, like,
Yeah. Oh
like,
gosh.
yeah.
All right.
So,
Last one on my list is Tad Williams, who I read
mm,
the Dragonbone Chair trilogy like
yeah,
years ago, and I understand he's had some follow-ups to the same world, and I think like it's at least one other series, maybe two. I think one's like something about grass, like Throne of Grass anyway, clearly I don't know what I'm talking about,
mm.
but I do know that these are popular books and I liked his Dragonbone Chair one like years ago. Those were like more of I wonder when those were written. Late 80s, 90s?
I think
Those were
those are
those
from
were
the
old.
80s, but I'm gonna
Yeah, those
check because I
were
actually know those were a big inspiration for George in writing Game of Thrones. Like
oh
he'll
nice.
at least at some point he cited like, oh yeah, like I
Okay.
loved Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. So I'll check, and it's called The
Mm,
Empire of Grass is the
okay.
one you're thinking of
I got
from
one of the words right.
1988 is the Dragonbone Share.
Mm,
Um,
okay. Mm.
yeah, people are telling us to read those. So, yeah, slow
Yeah.
burn, I hear.
Slow burn. Slow burn for sure. It's like, if I remember right, it's got like Arthurian legend vibes to it.
Hmm,
And
interesting.
I wonder how well it holds up now going back and reading it. I kind of wonder if I would like him as much, but I read these, those were another like late teens series, and I
Yeah,
liked him back then. But if
yeah,
he's still publishing, I assume his more modern stuff must be more modern, and I'm curious to see what's happened with that.
yeah. All right. Well, that's Tad Williams concluding the want to read more from
Yeah.
Stephen here. And Yeah, that's a lot of books that you brought in and a lot of authors. So I'm appreciative. I'm sure there's a lot there for both folks looking for the like which mainstream person should I go to next, or people just starting out, or whatever, or if folks want some of those deeper cuts you mentioned at the end there. I think there's a lot, definitely ones I want to check out as well. I know hearing like Shauna's books, I've been thinking I want to give those. I think this could be the kick in the butt that I need
Hmm.
for that.
Nice.
So yeah, Stephen, I I'm so happy that we got to have you on. I'm like uh, thinking it's been way too long since we did this, so let's not let nearly that much time pass again before we chat, be it on your home turf or mine. And yeah, that's I could think of no as soon as I was like, okay, I should get some guests on here so it's not Dylan rambling into the microphone for an hour plus, which apparently I can do. I guess surprising probably no
That's
one if I
impressive.
just yeah,
Yeah.
I it was like not this is like sad. It was like not hard for me. Like I was not, and I don't mean like it
Uh-huh.
wasn't hard for me to come up with brilliant content on the. It's like no, I have no idea if it was coherent
Uh-huh.
or valuable or of interest, but it
Uh-huh.
was. It was me talking for an hour plus, and I was like, oh
For
wow, like I
better or
should
worse,
probably
it
wrap
happened.
this up. Yeah, it happened for
Nice.
better or worse, for coherence or incoherence. But you, Steven, you were very coherent on here, and you were the first person that I thought of I wanted to bring on, and yeah, I'm so happy we got the chance to chat. So yeah, folks know where to find Fantology Podcast by now, and please go check that out. And otherwise, I'll sign off here. I've been having trouble without Charles because he does his little signature line at the end of the episode. So I
I
literally just yeah
Yeah,
yeah
I never know how to sign off. Honestly, I kind of appropriated some of yours where now we start and I say like my lifelong friends are here because I think you and Charles do that. And I like that.
yes,
And I kind of
that's
stole it
yeah.
honestly. So,
You're welcome to have that.
maybe you
But you are
hate
now a thought follower.
yeah,
You've
maybe you hate
actually that
yeah.
has lost your thought leader
Yeah.
title, and we
That's
have
right.
gained it. We are now thought
Yeah.
leaders, and you become a
That's
thought
right.
follower. That's
That's
how it
right.
works.
But yeah, if you have a good outro, then I'll steal that as well. So I'm now like e- I'm on, I'm on my toes here trying to see, oh, what's he gonna do? So
Oh, well, at the end of me rambling into the mic last time, I just literally went, peace. And like, well, as if that's what I used to say at the end of phone calls when I was like 14 years
yeah.
old. So I was like, I can probably do better. But for now, I'll just say thank you all for watching. Thank you for reading the books that we love so much. And thank you for just do you see I got nothing. I don't know. Like I have this whole back and forth with Charles too. So like
Yeah.
even the things I say, I'm like I don't even know how to say them. I'm like toss 5 stars to our podcast. I say that. I say just
Mm,
listening and watching is more than enough. Thank you for doing that. But Charles really wraps it up. So
mm.
this is all I can do. All I can do is just say thank you. And Stephen, please close us out. It's the
Clearly
worst
I
thing
need
a
to go
host can
back.
do. Just put
I
you
need
on
to
the
go
spot.
back and listen to a Charles episode and steal
Yes.
that
Oh
outro.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Much
Yeah.
better. He does the intro. He
However,
does the outro.
this back and forth carries enough humor where maybe this works for this
Yeah,
episode. Yeah.
this works.
And yeah,
Yes.
and so we'll close it out here. Thanks for having me on, Dylan.
Yes. Thanks for coming on, Steven.